Hi there, and welcome to Module 6 of this course, where we will be talking about polishing your manuscript. And our first lesson is on editing basics, what to fix first. So, here's the idea: you've been able to write your book, whether you wrote it by yourself or you use like a transcription software, or you add a virtual assistant, or you used artificial intelligence. Whatever way you did it, the book is done. You've written the first draft of the book. Now you have to go into editing. How do you go into that? So in the first lesson, like I said, we're talking about editing basics. What do you fix first? So first, let's touch on types of editing. There are three types of editing. There's the developmental editing, there's the copy editing, and there's proofreading editing. The developmental editing is basically the big picture. You're fixing the structure and you're fixing the flow. You're putting paragraphs where they should be. You're making sure that there's a flow between each paragraph. You're making sure that the thought process is linear and it's not jumping up and down. This is especially interesting for people who might have attention deficit or attention deficit hyperactive disorder, or people who are just generally mentally hyperactive. You would notice that some of your thoughts probably are not following through the way that they probably should, right? So that's developmental. So one of the types of editing is fixing that structure, fixing the flow, making sure the book actually makes sense, making sure it's communicating the right thing, right? Now, the second type is copy editing. Copy editing is where you fix the grammar, you make sure that the book is clear and easy to understand, and you ensure that there's consistency in the use of words. Maybe some chapters seem like they're grammatical, the way that they're written is a lot easier to understand, and then another chapter suddenly has all the gargantuous words. So there's no consistency there, and that's something that needs to be fixed, right? Consistency in maybe things like in just the kind of words that you use, the referencing to language, all of that falls under copy editing. Now, proofreading is for typographical errors. So you're reading through again to ensure that you fix typographical errors. Let's say you're trying to say editing, but you eventually put two N's instead of just one N towards the end. So you put two N's instead. So in proofreading, you fix stuff like that. And in proofreading, you also fix formatting errors. Now, it's important to just start with the big picture edits, right? Check the overall, forget about the grammar for a bit, and check the overall structure and the chapter flow. Make sure that the chapters are in the right places, and what should be the introductory chapter is not somewhere as chapter 8, right? Make sure the chapters are in the right place. Make sure there's a flow with the chapters. Then also make sure there's a flow from like paragraph to paragraph in the entire structure of the book. Also, when doing the big picture edits, ensure that your message is clear and it's focused on a large scale, right? Ensure that what you're saying is well communicated. Ensure that you're not trying to talk about, let's say you're trying to write a book on wealth, and before you know it, you're already talking about airplanes and whatnot. Ensure that your message is clear, ensure that it's focused, ensure that it's not ambiguous, ensure that it's not vague, right? Also, you cut out every redundant or off-topic content. So if you see that you're spilling too much about a particular topic that maybe you're personally passionate about, but it's actually not in line with what you're trying to do with the book, you cut out stuff like that. That's what happens in the big picture edits, and that's where you start from. Next, you move to the sentence level fixes, which is where you're copy editing. You're adjusting grammar yourself, you're adjusting the punctuation, putting full stops where they should be, and commas where they should be, and hyphens where they should be. You're ensuring sentence clarity and readability, making sure that each sentence is communicating exactly what it should communicate, making sure that you don't have unnecessarily long sentences where you have like 4 commas just making up one sentence, or 4 phrases making up 4 long phrases making up just one sentence. Ensure that it's readable, right? Ensure that it's easy on the eyes, easy on the brain. Also, you have to ensure that you have a consistent tone and style. You have a tone so don't start talking calmly, or don't start with a calm tone and then move on to a very high energetic and pumping kind of tone. Also, make sure that your style is very consistent. And the final one is proofreading, where you're fixing typos, you're fixing spelling errors, you're fixing formatting consistency, like fonts, making sure the font, maybe for the chapter titles, the fonts are the correct font, making sure the font all through the book for the major content is the same. So if you're using Calibri, you're using Calibri for all the body text, make sure that it's the same. Ensure that the margins are the same. You don't want to have weird spacings everywhere. So in some places you've got 2.0 spacing, in some places you've got 1.5. And also check your captions, check your references, check your images. Just a final check to ensure that the book is looking like what it should look like. And this is primarily for people who want to edit it themselves. So you start with structural editing, then you move on to the copy editing before you come around to the proofreading. So it's almost like you're taking the mentally heavy type of editing first, and then coming down to the most basic one, right? But if you're not editing your book yourself, this is not something that you would have to worry about. But at least knowing that this is what it should look like, and these are the things that need to be fixed during the editing process, will help you have an expectation of your editor. Now, the second lesson is on using editing software and editing assistants, because if you're working with a large bulk of words, let's say you've written a book and it's about 80,000 words, it might seem like a cumbersome task to get so many words edited within a short period of time. Now, in the cases like this, you can actually use the time blocking method to get it done. You could use the MVP method the same way you probably practice in your writing to get it done. But you could also use editing software and editing assistants to make it easier. So why would you even consider using editing tools? Firstly, it catches common errors that miss the eye, right? And I can attest to that. Catches a lot of errors that would usually be missed by the eye. It also helps you improve your readability and flow by calling you out on, okay, this use of words is too repetitive, or you've used this word so many times, or this sentence is too long, or this grammar is not accurate. And it also helps you to speed up self-editing process if you are editing by yourself. It makes it faster. So where you would probably spend a month trying to edit just one draft, it could help you get it done in a few days. And you also get to confirm whether you want. So it's not like you're going to give it to these platforms and then they'll make all the changes. No, they'll just suggest changes and then tell you why you need to fix what. So basically, they're assisting you with the editing. They're not taking it over from you. Now, some of the tools that you can use that I'm familiar with, I know that there are new ones. There are more will come out at whatever time it is that you're getting access to this course. There'll probably be newer software editing tools, editing softwares rather. But some of the ones that are most common at the moment are Grammarly, Hemingway, and a number of other AI editing assistants. Some people would use ChatGPT, some people will use Gemini and just give it the content and say, oh, you know what, fix up whatever grammatical errors are here for me and all of that. I would usually not advise that because there's still a bit of uncertainty about IP rights when you give certain written texts that are your intellectual property to ChatGPT or to certain AI softwares. But Grammarly is quite safe from my perspective, depending on how you use it. So yeah, there are quite a number of editing tools to help you in this process. Now, the third lesson is when to hire a professional editor or a beta reader. So let's say you don't have the time to do it yourself, or you know that you could just get a professional editor or a beta reader to call you out on certain mistakes. When do you do it? When should you choose to do stuff like that? So firstly, why would you even need a professional editor? The upside of that as compared to self-editing is the fact that firstly, professional editor is an objective expert, right? They don't have any bias for your book and they have experience in editing, right? So their eyes, their perspective, them getting their hands on the book is definitely going to improve the quality of your book. Also, they are more familiar with how to catch subtle issues and inconsistencies because they have a lot more experience than you do. And they would also be able to help you prepare your manuscript for publication standards, because you do want your book to be up to par, even if it's something even if you're still trying to gain the confidence for it. You want your book to look excellent, you want it to look the part. If you're planning to work with like a publishing firm, you do want your book to meet certain publication standards. Now, there are three types of professional editors. We have the developmental editors who do developmental editing, which is what I explained in the last lesson. They help you to fix your story and the structure. Then we have the copy editors who work on language and style, and we have the proofreaders who do like the final polish. Now, there are persons who do all three or do two, depending on what you're looking for. You know which one to subscribe to. Beta readers, on the other hand. So wait, let's go back a bit. Basically, if you don't have the time to edit your book yourself, or you feel like you would rather a professional do it, that's when you should hire a professional editor, right? And when you're hiring a professional editor, you need to understand that some of them are, they lean majorly towards certain sides. Maybe they're more into developmental editing, or they're more into proofreading. You have to be clear on what you want them to do. Now, if you want someone who's just going to do copy editing and developmental editing, and you're going to proofread yourself, or well and good. Or if you want someone who's going to do all three and also format your book, just make sure that you're clear on what you're asking them, and also make sure that you sign a non-disclosure agreement. The minute you're working with anybody outside yourself, with anything that's your intellectual property, draft a non-disclosure agreement with them to ensure the safety of your book legally, constitutionally, to ensure your privacy also. So make sure that you have a non-disclosure agreement signed. Now let's talk about beta readers. Beta readers are your first audience. They're basically the first set of people who get their hands on your book. The idea is for them to look at it before it goes out, and they provide you honest feedback on the content, honest feedback on how engaging it was for them. They also help you identify confusing parts or gaps. It's like testing the market, basically. So they are your ideal readers, and they're looking at it and saying, oh, I did not understand what you were saying in chapter 2. It just felt so confusing. That's feedback, and it helps you understand that, okay, there's something that needs to be fixed there, right? Your beta readers can be your peers, your colleagues, your target readers, book influencers. It could be anybody really. But let's say you're writing a book for females. Females are probably your target readers, so you probably want to get beta readers who are females, and find out how they think on the book, how they think the book would affect them, if they think other people should also get their hands on the book. So they're basically like a pool of testers who will help you see what mistakes you're making, know what adjustments to make, know what to fix, and know if your book has gotten to a point where it's ready to go out. I think they also help you know whether your book is something that people would genuinely want to read, which most of the time would boost your confidence. So how do you find, beta readers or editors, professional editors? How do you find them so that you can work with them? Firstly, you can find them on writing communities like Upwork and Readsy, right? You can find them on writing communities generally. So the ones on Facebook, the ones whether on WhatsApp or whatever social media platform, on Discord, you can find them there. So there are lots of them there. You can also find, especially you can find professional editors on Upwork and Fiverr, and then you can also find professional editors on Readsy. Readsy has their own professional editors that a lot of people use, because they are really professional, very experienced, and they're not just freelancing. That's their work. How do you work with them? Firstly, you have to set clear expectations. Like I said on the last screen, you have to set clear expectations and deadlines. Okay, I want my book done in 4 weeks. Oh, I'm working with an 8 weeks deadline. Or even if you're not sure when to launch, make sure that it's an agreed period of time, and make sure that your expectations are clear. I am expecting structural editing, copy editing, and proofreading. Or I'm also expecting you to format my book. You have to be very clear on exactly what you're expecting. But you also, in working with them, you also have to be very open to constructive criticism, because they're going to tell you the truth about your book. Remember, they're professional, they have more experience, they're experts, and they are unbiased. The bias that you have as the writer of the book, they do not have. So you have to be open to their constructive criticism, right? Doesn't mean anybody should insult you or berate you for the work that you've put in, but as long as the criticism is constructive, be open to it, listen to them, and take their advice where it seems right, and see how far your book gets to go. That's all for Model 6, and now we're moving on to Model 7 in the next video, where I will be talking to you about how to publish like a pro. See you in the next video.